on my channel, which are key. I'd really appreciate some information on how to deal and move on from the confusion and fog from the relationship when a narcissistic leaves you. After continuous blame shifting, a total lack of accountability. I know part I know as part of my no contact regime, it's not optional to expose myself to yet more emotional abuse, but I struggle with the blame. And that's what we're left with, basically. So if you struggle with the blame, it means at some level, I presume what's going on inside your head is your inner dialogue. And that's something you need to pay attention to. Pay attention to what you're saying to you. Because when you're then beating up on yourself and blaming yourself, it's not that you're not blameless. Let's sometimes empaths have this thing that we think we're angels and we're perfect. We're far from perfect. I hope you guys know that anyhow. I hope you know you're not perfect. I hope you've kind of matured in your own thinking to know that you're not perfect. But there might be an opportunity for you to sit down and think and sit with yourself and ask yourself, what are the areas where maybe I could have done things differently? Remember, any situation you go through life is an opportunity for you to learn. So do ask yourself, what could I have done differently? What are your answers to that, my dear friend? What could you have done differently? Therefore, the answers that bubble up give you wonderful insight into how maybe you might need to adapt your behavior, how you might need to change in the future. So those are important questions to ask yourself. But I would need to really understand, in what ways do you blame yourself? Be careful, because obviously the mind control, the manipulation can result in you doubting yourself. And the reality is, if self-doubt is at the core of how you operate in the world, then there's a likelihood, if you don't address that, if you don't deal with that, that you're only going to meet somebody else who's likely to exploit your lack of self-belief. So my encouragement to you, my friend, is that you need to develop belief in yourself. Developing belief in yourself is essential for life generally, because people will take advantage of your lack of self-belief and often use you to your advantage. So there's a likelihood that you might go from similar relationship to similar relationship. What that actually results is, it means that you're often looking for the answers outside of yourself, which means you abdicate self-responsibility. But interestingly, when things go wrong, you take all the blame. So be careful around that. And my real encouragement would be for you to get psychological help, either with myself or somebody else, because not believing in yourself, having low self-belief, is not going to be great for you, because you're going to have confidence issue. You're going to doubt yourself. And often you're going to need to go to other people to validate you. That's not great for yourself. That's not great for your mental wellness or the ambitions that you have for your life. How to move on from the confusion and the fog. Well, like I said, really and truly, often, and one of the fundamental aspects of narcissistic abusive relationships can be a lack of belief in ourselves. And I think that's one of the ways where, when they gaslight you, you end up doubting yourself, or you always think you're the problem. So this is clearly an area of your own psychology that you need to work on. Continuous blame shifting and a lack of accountability. Well, the reality is, I would probably imagine that when you saw the red flags, you ignored them. The reality is, you need to ask yourself, why did you ignore the red flags? Because red flags are really inconvenient, especially if you want to be in a relationship. If you've been looking for someone, you might have been single for a number of years. And sometimes, I'm not saying in all situations, sometimes we're desperate to be in love again, right? And so that desperation can mean we minimize, play down, excuse inconvenient behaviors, red flag behaviors. The reality is, my friend, is we need to call those out. We need to call those out early, so that our ability to get attached to someone is hampered if it's potentially going to be a problematic relationship. So my encouragement to you is, potentially in this situation, you may have seen red flags and you didn't call them out because it was inconvenient for you. In any relationship, there will be ruptures. Also of paramount importance is to pay attention to how those ruptures are repaired. I'm going to say it to you again. Any relationship will have ruptures. Ruptures are a normal part of relationships. What is vital to our wellness is how we pay attention to how the ruptures are repaired. Basically, if you're doing all the repair work and you're leaning in and leaning in and leaning in and going above and beyond, be careful. Or if you're frightened of being alone, if you're fearful of being alone and the loneliness that comes with that and the search, the desperate search for someone else or the one, be careful. Desperation ain't a good look. And our narcissistic friends do pick up on it. So to conclude, firstly, I would encourage you to think about focusing on developing your self-belief. The answers are always within. Sometimes we just don't like the answers. Secondly, like, what could you have done differently? What were the things that you could have done differently? And lastly, what has this situation taught you? What is the life lesson that you've learned from this adverse situation? And that's the secret to living a good life. Adversity will come to all of us. It's not about the adverse situation. It is always about how you respond to adversity. You, like me, like many people, can make adversity advantageous. The key is what you learn and how fundamentally you apply what you learn to future situations. I hope that video is good for you. I hope it answers your questions. If you have any more or want to put a comment below and you've got a video request, feel free to ask. I'm here to be of service. Do take care of you, because if you don't, no one's coming to save you. We must learn.